I'm going to go ahead and start and read what we teach inside, and then we'll discuss. So we're going to do a roundtable discussion on the creation of the cosmos, the Norse creation myth. And the Norse creation myth, or cosmogony, which means a view on the origins of the cosmos, is perhaps one of the richest of such accounts in all of world literature. Not only is it an exceptionally colorful and entertaining story, it is also bursting with subtle meanings. And some of these meanings we will discuss today. First, here's the tale itself. The origin of the cosmos. Before there was soil or sky or any green thing, there was only the gaping abyss of Ginnungagap. This chaos of perfect silence and darkness lay between the homeland of elemental fire, Muspelheim, and the homeland of elemental ice, Niflheim. Frost from Niflheim and billowing flames from Muspelheim crept toward each other until they met in Ginnungagap. Amid the hissing and sputtering, the fire melted the ice, and the drops formed themselves into Ymir, the first of the godlike giants. Ymir was a hermaphrodite and could reproduce asexually. When he sweated, more giants were born. As the frost continued to melt, a cow, Audhumla, emerged from it. She nourished Ymir with her milk. And she in turn were nourished by salt licks in the ice. Her salt licks slowly uncovered Buri, the first of the Aesir tribe of gods. Buri had a son named Bor, who married Bestla, the daughter of the giant Bolthorn. The half-god, half-giant children of Bor and Bestla were Odin, who became chief of the Aesir gods, and his two brothers, Vili and Ve. Odin and his brothers slew Ymir and set about constructing the world from his corpse. They fashioned the oceans from his blood, the soil from his skin and muscles, vegetation from his hair, clouds from his brains, and sky from his skull. And 4 doors corresponding to the 4 cardinal points held Ymir's skull aloft the earth. It was Northri, Southri, Ostri, and Vestri, north, south, east, and west. The gods eventually formed the first man and woman, Osk and Embla, from 2 tree trunks. Osk was made of ash from ash and Embla from elm, and built a fence around their dwelling place, Midgard, to protect them from the giants. And the fence around Midgard was fashioned from Ymir's eyebrows. The eyebrows or eyelashes? I think it was eyebrows.
It's eyebrows.
Eyebrows. Life comes from death. The first of the 3 conceptual meanings embedded in this myth that we'll be talking about is that creation never occurs in a vacuum. It necessitates the destruction of that which comes before it. New life feeds on death, a principle which is recapitulated every time we eat, to cite but one example. This constant give and take, one of the most basic principles of life, features prominently in the Norse creation myth. The world was not created ex nihilo, or out of nothing, as it is in the Judeo-Christian creation myth, for example. Rather, in order to create the world, the gods first had to slay Ymir, the representative of primal chaos, whose undifferentiated state is shown by his being a hermaphrodite. As such, he is essentially an extension of Ginnungagap itself. After all, Ymir's kin, the giants, are constantly attempting to drag the cosmos back towards the chaotic nothingness of Ginnungagap, and during Ragnarok they succeed. Whenever they ate, cleared land for settlements, or engaged in combat, the Norse could look back to this tale of the gods killing Ymir as the archetype upon which their own efforts were patterned. In the modern world, we view the physical universe as consisting of inert, essentially mechanical matter, a view which can be traced back to 2 sources. The first, of course, is the Christian creation myth, where the monotheistic God fashions the world as a mere artifact into which his divine substance never enters. The second source is the theological speculations of the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, who hypothesized that the world was created by the coming together of 2 wholly different principles, matter and form, which was God. He called the unknown mover. For Aristotle, the unmoved mover provided him with the grand first cause that enabled him to describe much of the physical world in terms of linear, deterministic cause and effect, a precursor to our own modern concept of natural laws. The view of the physical world as inert and non-spiritual is a quite young innovation, having been around for only about 2,500 years out of the 150,000 or so that our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, has existed. Before this worldview came into prominence, and long after in areas where this view had not yet become established, such as the Norse of the Viking Age, humankind held a very different view of the nature of the physical world. The overwhelming majority of all humans who have ever lived have seen the visible world as the organic manifestation of spirit, with consciousness and will being intrinsic properties of the world as a whole, rather than the exclusive possession of one species, the human. This perspective is called animism. The very word matter comes from the Latin word for mother and references the archaic, in my opinion, beautiful view that the soul into which we go when we die is the womb of a goddess, Mother Earth. The Norse creation myth contains nothing like a monotheistic god or unmoved mover. In Niflheim, even Niflheim and Muspelheim are largely the products of their interactions with the other 7 of the 9 worlds, due to the fact that the trajectory of Norse mythology is cyclical rather than linear, meaning that creation of the cosmos occurs after the cosmos is destroyed during Ragnarok, and the cycle repeats itself eternally without beginning or end. Accordingly, the indigenous worldview of the Norse and other Germanic peoples has no concept or place for the concept of the inert insensate matter. Their creation narrative confirms this. The world is fashioned from the hot, bleeding flesh of Ymir and is formed into the flesh of new living beings, just like our own bodies, when they return to the soil, give life to other creatures who feed upon them. In the view of Aristotle and the other authors of Genesis, creation was an event that happened only once at a specific time in the past and is now over forever. And it was accomplished by a single being, Elohim, Yahweh, God, the unmoved mover, whatever you want to call it, who by virtue of this act is the sole being in the universe who possesses any cosmogonic powers worth mentioning. In the heathen Norse perspective, however, creation is ongoing and participatory. The Norse creation myth tells only of the initial shaping of the world. However, the character of the cosmos is always being reshaped. All of the inhabitants of the 9 worlds have some role, some agency in this process, however great or small. Even in the Norse creation myth itself, we see that the initial shaping of the cosmos was an act that occurred gradually in the numerous stages and was accomplished by a wide variety of beings, building from the accomplishments of those who came before them. So that is my spiel. Let's start the discussion. Who wants to go first on their theories of the creation myth?
I will.
Go, Amanda.
So this is one of my favorites because this makes more sense to me than, say, like the Christian creation myth. And I get really excited about it because I see it on a galactic scale. I see it as possibly Ginnungagap being just the void of space, and Yggdrasil is always been there, coming out of it as energy, as the energy that flows from the universe through everything. So when I think of Yggdrasil, we all come from Yggdrasil. We all come from that never-ending energy, and we always come back to it. And I feel like that's the purpose of it being a tree, is because that's what our ancestors had, that they could take physically and see it that way. Now Niflheim and Muspelheim, in my opinion, like our galaxy is a spiral galaxy. So, and they're starting to figure out through science now that it could be 2 galaxies coming and colliding. So that could very well be Muspelheim and Niflheim created our galaxy, which is just phenomenal to me. That this creation myth just really, in my opinion, comes down to science, and this was the easiest way to explain it. So I find that pretty fascinating. Go ahead.
Okay. I also like, the whole part about it being ongoing and participatory. We are changing our world, if you look at it on a metaphysical sense and not just physical. Both, I think, is constant.
Oh yeah, and that it's cyclical. That's another thing that resonates really well with me, because energy never ceases to exist. It just kind of continues on, and that fits really well in my life view as well.
Exactly. Miss Teresa.
So I have to unmute because, you know, toddlers. But, all right. So basically, I really love what Amanda's saying about Yggdrasil and it being cyclical like that. That is something that I absolutely believe in. Going back, because I wanted to definitely acknowledge that, because I'm very much into the energy and that type of thing. And it's about universal law, right? The cyclical part, because it's from us, you know, from the gods to us, or us to the ground, to the gods, to the it just goes over and over. So I think that's a very important symbolic thing for us to think about. But when you talk about the creation myths, and, you know, I've been doing this heathenry thing for a long time, this is one of the more common discussions about, well, where did we all come from? And where are we all going? And are we all really sitting in the skull of a giant? And how big must this giant be for our universe to fit in this giant, you know, skull? And blah, blah, blah. And for me, I've just always believed that the myths were a way for our ancestors to explain to children the mysteries of the earth and our world and our cosmos that otherwise they couldn't explain. And isn't it synchronistic and amazing that the Big Bang Theory is absolutely explained by it now, right? Whereas back in, you know, circa 1206, the Norse people did not know what we know now. And they're teaching about the collision of the two worlds, and it created, you know, Midgard. And so I think it's amazing that all of these synchronicities are kind of happening. I mean, where did they get their knowledge? From the gods, maybe.
From the gods.
From the ancestors, from genetic memory, like we were discussing earlier. You know, and that's passed down through your lineage, through your bloodline, through your culture. And it could be that, you know, through all of that, we have the genetic memory to actually go back and recall these things through intuition and spiritual guidance of the gods and our ancestors. And so I think it's the synchronicities of it all are amazing. Do I know if we were all formed, and the trees and the animals were formed from eyelashes and eyebrows and skin and, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a disgusting thought as a nurse to think that I'm standing on a dead skin cell right now. You know, that's really freaking disgusting. But, you know, the reality of it is, if you look at scientifically, like Amanda was saying, if you look at, you know, just even the cyclical pattern of water, all water on the earth, period. I don't care if you're drinking it RO, it doesn't matter. All water on this planet, period, has been urine at least 600 times by now. So, I mean, the reality of it is the reality of it, right?
Right.
So the question is, do we know the reality of the situation, or is it just explained through genetic memory or through the ancestors or through guidance and intuition? I don't know, but it's interesting how they explain the Big Bang Theory way back before they ever thought of a Big Bang Theory.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
Exactly.
I love that.
I never even thought of Ymir as like an actual being. I've always thought of him as like matter, you know, possibly a meteor, you know what I mean? Like matter that has been broken up over time, creating our world. So I just looked at it completely as like astrological events.
But there are
You know what I
some
mean?
who seriously take that creation myth
Literally.
like literally.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry.
But there's also Christians that take the Bible literally.
Right. So
you
I
know.
mean, there are
Absolutely.
not four doors. I mean, and I'm going to say this, and they're going to discover four, like, I don't know, skeletons of doors at four cardinal points, but there are
Oh,
not.
don't
Four
get me started
doors
on flat
standing
Earth,
there.
Donna.
Huh?
Don't get us started on flat Earth theory, because you would
Well,
have to have a flat Earth to have 4 dwarfs standing there
standing
holding
there
it.
holding them up. I know, I know. And there are people who still do believe that. Um, but no, another thing I had done during some research, I mean, besides the Big Bang Theory, we're going back to now discussing how Muspelheim, what they were looking at, there was no, you look, okay, look at Norway and ancient Norway and the beginning of their volcanoes as the earth was
Mhm.
changing. And that
Mhm.
was what they were saying was creating the lands. I mean, they were describing literally what was happening with Muspelheim and Niflheim being the ice and whatnot and the volcanic and forming these. I mean, so that was just, to me, again, the creation myth is very, it was their way to explain, but they were so dead on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always said
I
that
think
when
it's
I do the,
interesting how they understood, and we're still learning a lot about the tectonic plates and all of the crashing and banging around that does and
right,
produces, land mass. But I think it's really interesting how they were looking at ice and fire, and it genuinely did create landmass. And
right.
so then they're
They knew
explaining
that.
to their children, how this worked, and then to come out, in the 90s, well, 80s, 90s, it's always been around as long as I've been alive, the whole evolution theory. My parents kicked and screamed when they taught me that in school. And I will tell you, it makes more sense than anything else I've seen.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely. And the way they describe that in the Norse creation myth about how, everything, nothing worked alone. Everything came upon what came before and went
Mhm.
back. And even if and we're going past the creation myth today, but you look at the whole Norse mythology up to Ragnarok, and then how it creates again. It is everything is cyclical and plays off what came before, and that's how life works. And they knew
Right.
it.
Well,
And
yeah,
even
I mean,
and even with what Amanda's saying about that mass and energy and all of these things, you never lose mass and you never lose energy. It's always cyclical.
Yeah,
It just takes on a different form.
yeah.
And that follows universal law.
That's why I talk about us. We are nothing but a bunch of we're just nothing but a big pile of energy. We're a bunch of little electrons spinning around these protons and neutrons. And when we die or die whatever and dissolve, we don't go away. We're still here. We're
Mhm.
just dispersed. And energy is never destroyed or created. It just changes form.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and that's the same with
and then like you were saying, that they were physically seeing the volcanoes meeting the ice, creating landmass. Well, they were just seeing it on a small scale. That's what happens everywhere in space, in our universe, in our galaxy. That's
right.
just part of the natural order of things, that there is fire and ice, and those two things coming together. And so, just because that was something that they saw firsthand doesn't mean that that's not how the universe actually works
Yeah.
everywhere.
Right. Yeah, and the Norse creation myth just, and I, speaking as one who, like the Irish, we don't have a creation myth. There's not one. We have the Book of Invasions, and we know when the people came, but there is no creation myth like there started here. But it does. It just amazes me when I read the Norse creation myth how it's so explains the world that we know now. I mean, I think Niflheim here, Muspelheim here, Gnunga, and it comes together, and boom, they form a mirror. Can we say Big Bang? And everybody laughs. I'm like, they totally described the Big Bang Theory. I'm like, how the hell is that even?
Yeah. So this, what you just said about the Irish, brings up another turn of thought. Okay, since a lot of our mythology and our stories were basically adulterated by Christians, and the
Mm-hmm.
Christian creation myth is a huge foundation of their faith. So is it possible, and I believe it is is it possible that the Norse creation myth happened because Christians needed it to happen?
Here's a story. Okay, here's
And it
another
was
part.
maybe based on stories that children were told by parents
Here's
through,
something else.
you know.
When we go on the creation myth, and this I tell in that video that I did, I was kind of a smart ass, I know I was. But so, you know, from they wanted to populate, and they find Oscar, they make Oscar out of an ash and Embla from an elm. They find these two branches.
Adam and Eve.
There you go. Okay, thank you.
It's
And
on
they-
just a simple level. It's
And they take
just stolen.
and they breathe life into them, and then they take the eyebrows and they form the fence around Midgard, where Oscar and Embla were. What does that sound like to you?
Eden.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, can we not get any more? Can we not
Right,
copy
yeah.
more? Yeah. So it's just yeah, they totally.
And I think it's important to consider those things when we're talking about these things, because there's really no way to know. None of us has a time machine. We can't go back and check it out for ourselves. And as heathens, that's what we would all do if we could.
Right.
But I think that it's highly influenced by the Christian writers that wrote our myths down and took down and scribed all of our stuff.
Right.
And I think it's highly adulterated by that mindset. They had to have an answer to, how did we get here? Because that's
Right.
a big Christian thing, that they had to know how we got here.
Yeah. Like we have our book of invasions, and we can tell you who came to the island, but there were already people there. We don't ever just say where we came from. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, and see a lot of the myth that was wrote down, you know, well, Snorri definitely adulterated a lot of stuff. Because Poetic Edda is where all these myths are at first, and he just rewrote it in the Prose Edda and added some things and changed some things, like his description of hell is completely out of whack. But so yeah, there's definitely some influence on that. But I'm still amazed, and so I look at it like, you know, our creation, we are constantly, because we do view our path as cyclical and not linear. You know, we are constantly changing. We are constantly creating, and so that's going to bring me to present day stuff. We got the coronavirus epidemic, and now we have the protests that are going on.
The coronavirus is absolutely the earth cleansing itself.
Yeah.
100%. And that's universal law. That's the way it works.
We have a lot of chaos going on right now, a huge ton of chaos right now. And and so I'm telling people, my thought is, you know, the world as we know it and have known it is completely changed. Even if it's a small way and you don't see it physically, it is completely changed. I mean, the way we do things now, the way we interact, and schools are not starting back. Schools are having to do things different. So we are in a process of change. We are in our new creation. So now we have the opportunity to change things the way we want them to be.
See, and I feel like it's really an ascension process, that it's part of our evolution to get to and through this process.
I agree. Amanda?
Yeah.
What do you think about what's going on?
It's it is. It's changing. I'm not sure if it's for the best or not, but things will definitely be changing, and a lot of growth will happen. I think there'll be like a huge technology boom to get around the social distancing and all that. And we'll just have to wait and see whether it's a good change or a bad change.
I think it's good. I think it's going to be what we make it. That's the whole point. How do we want it to be? We're at a place now where we can make decisions and things that will make it the way we want it to be, to the best of our ability. I know I'm doing that. I mean,
absolutely.
I've seen more of Teresa in the last, I don't know, months than I've seen in the last 5 years.
Mhm.
Right? And that's all thanks to technology and
And
coronavirus.
coronavirus. I'm happy about. I mean, I am probably more. I know everybody's upset and they're all socially disconnected. Like I am more connected now than I've ever been. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Well, I remember back in the day when it was constant hit and miss because we're both doing the prison ministry and
Yep.
getting in there and doing this and running and them closing down the visitation in the prisons and us not knowing what to do with ourselves is what brought this on,
Yeah,
right?
which I think is
And
great. I mean, yeah.
it's absolutely wonderful, and I don't have to go anywhere and spend every penny I've got to do it.
Yet.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
I will say that during all of this, it has definitely brought me closer back to my roots
Yeah.
and
Yes.
the earth. I have a
Yes.
huge garden now, like things that I didn't have time for, things that
Yeah.
weren't necessarily like priority for me. Like also going to prison was a full time and then some job.
Right.
We
Right.
were
Yeah.
in multiple prisons every week.
Yeah.
But now I've got my vegetable garden growing. I've got my chickens. Like everything's pretty lined up to live the way that we've been talking about wanting to live. So
And that's
there
what I
has
think.
been good things.
That's what I think we're coming. That's something that I'm gonna have to discuss, like with Shannon and Teresa, and even with just Teresa, and even you, Amanda, how our work as is going with the prisons is going to be going forward. I mean, I'm not going to stop going in. I'm not run as much as I would like to run back in there as soon as they say open up. I'm probably not. I got to be smart. I got to think long term.
Yeah.
I was talking with James about that today. At first, Shay and I were actually looking at flights, be cheaper. 256 right now, round trip. I looked at. I'm like, damn. But
Are you
again,
serious?
yeah.
Wow.
But like Nellie said, though, really, that's a petri dish. You're in an enclosed building with all this non-circulated air or circulating inside. Really, you want to go and take that chance and then take it in the prison? And I'm like, oh, you're right.
Well, but I think by October we're gonna see a decline in cases, and the reason I think that is because summer UV rays, all of that stuff is gonna bring that down. The other part of it is that they have to run their air in an airplane through, and this is not anywhere near part of our discussion, but they have to run that through filtering and all of that stuff. So it might actually be safer to be in the airplane than stopping at gas stations, rest stops, and blah 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 driving.
It might be. I mean, I'll have to look. I mean, I'm really but that whole thing is my whole thought process. I've got to think of that now, where I never had to before. I've got to think about how we're going to do this ministry more so, and do it in a way that can maintain what we're getting now. Like Amanda said, we lost touch with what our roots basically.
What was important, yeah.
And we got to start prioritizing. Not that that's not important, but how we're going to do this in a way that's balanced. We got time to do that now to figure that out. Because I was that way too.
Well, and I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I was just, I don't want to interrupt you, but I love what Amanda said about getting back to what's most important. I've always had a garden. I don't show a lot of pictures of it, but I've always had a garden. And I'm a prepper, like my friends think I'm a little crazy because I'm a prepper to the extent that I am. But I have, I'm a single mom with 5 kids. If you don't prepare,
right,
you're screwed,
right.
And so, yeah, it's important to do what you got to do before you do what you want to do. And for me, I had to get back before the coronavirus because I got so ill myself doing for others that I had to get back to my roots. And part of that was getting back to my garden and getting back to what was most important and doing what I had to do for me and mine before I did what I wanted to do for everybody else.
Right.
And so I think if we can keep that balance moving forward, because I know Donna and I will run ourselves absolutely to death in these prisons.
So
and
Amanda,
I'm not as familiar with your history. Yeah. But I mean, I know that we will run ourselves to death doing this. And literally, and that we can't do that. And I cannot allow myself to go down that
Right.
road again, because I may not survive the next round.
Right. That's the whole thing about this time and this change right now. I look at it, it's given us all time to step back and reflect on where
Yeah.
we were at and how we want to go forward. And I think if we take that time, it's, we're creating our new cosmos. So I think it'll be good.
I
It's
think
all gonna be great.
we're making ourselves really great ancestors for our progeny, and I'm really excited about the fact that I'm leaving them with a name and a reputation that they can be proud of.
Right.
And that's a lot. That goes right back to Yggdrasil and the cyclic nature of universal law and all of that. And I'm really proud of that. I'm proud of all of us that we're doing what we're doing, and I'm proud of us giving a different face to heathenry, because we're not all, well, we are all axe throwing bitches, but but at the same time, we have more of a gentler side to us as well. And I think a lot of times in the prisons or just in heathenry as a whole, they don't see that side and
No.
the natural aspects of everything, and they don't see the gentle side to heathenry at all. And I think it's so important, especially in the prisons, that they see that it's not Prisatru. It's truly a Northern European faith that was so nature-based, and there was actually a limited amount of killings and, all of that stuff. And they just wrote about it because it was exciting.
Well, yeah.
Nobody's excited about tilling a garden.
That's exactly right.
I am.
Well, so yeah, well, we are. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like if I show you, like Nellie's like we're having salad tonight. We got lettuce coming up now, and this. I'm like, all right, that's something we did, and I am truly blessed with who I'm quarantined with. We all know about my Nellie, and I ain't sharing with nobody. But I mean,
we all want a Nellie.
we made, beforehand, because of the community here and the ties we had here. Like we got half a grass-fed cow. We're slaughtering a hog this week for fresh. We had these different connections. We had goat, so we are so in such a better position with people because we had local sources to get things from that we already worked with.
Sure.
And that is really important. And I think people now are realizing how important your local farmers are, and your local, and buying from your local, our local dairy. And these are important things because, I mean, people are freaking out. They don't have food or this or that. They're limited to so many amount of chickens. Look, Amanda just got to go grab one off the back of her couch. She's good. She can eat. I saw him run through your couch last week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's important. This has been good. We are taking this time, and it is a chaotic time. This is Ganingagut, folks. Look at it. This is it.
This is the great unknown, for sure.
It is a great unknown. And, you got Muspelheim, the fire coming from one side and ice on the other. And we got to decide, we're in a position to be able to kind of decide how they go.
Yeah, we can
And
navigate.
Navigate it. Yeah. Just navigate the icebergs. So, yeah. So I think that's
so
good.
I have to say that I am super in love with Amanda's picture, because she totally looks like the way I picture just a good down home Norse woman should look.
Look at her, I know. Isn't she? It's her, by the way, it's her birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday. I love it. Do you want to hear our heathen birthday song?
Sing it.
Yeah.
They shocked the crap out of me with this one for my birthday. Okay, are you ready? Happy fucking birthday. Eat your fucking cake. Happy fucking birthday. Eat your fucking cake. And it goes on and on and on and on.
That's awesome.
Happy fucking birthday. Eat your fucking cake. Oh my gosh, that's great. I tell you what I do like.
Birthday song.
What I do like about, when we tell, like you said, the creation myths and the other myths were told for children to explain things, and now we are in a position doing what we do, and sharing with other people to tell the same creation myth and how it actually applies to life, you
Yeah.
know, and in a way it's so we're not like telling like, look, there's really not four doors standing there holding the skull up. However, you know, this
But
and how
you
it
better know
relates.
your cardinals. Yeah, you've got to know your
You
cardinals.
do, you
Those are
do.
so important. You know, you can't, and yeah, I mean,
And I, you know, me, you know, this Irish chick here totally believes in land whites, and
absolutely.
they're out there, dude. They're
And
dwarf.
household whites. Yeah.
Oh well, yeah.
Yeah.
So just so you know, my rings I haven't had on in a week because they're gone. They're gone. My rings
You
are
better put
gone.
out some oatmeal and honey, girl.
I wear them every day. I took them off when I showered last time, and they have vanished. Nellie's
Mhm.
glasses have vanished.
Yeah.
The one she has, she sees double. We drove all the way to Kentucky with her seeing double.
Yep.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah,
You've got to put out some oatmeal and honey
I
and some mead.
have.
Homemade mead is best. Just saying.
I haven't got that yet. I might have to do that. Something I've
You
tried.
just have to come see me.
I've
Come see me.
tried and I've done the whole, you know, okay, it's not funny anymore. And if it's not a house fight, then it's my son not funny anymore. But yeah, I mean, no, the stuff's in the house. It's here. We just
Yeah.
don't know where.
So
So
just convince yourself that it'll turn up.
I haven't panicked. I haven't panicked yet. I will panic here
I hope
shortly.
it didn't go down the drain.
He didn't do that. Now I know he didn't do that because I don't even put him anywhere near that. No, it's they just kind of walked off the table in the living room somewhere gone. I remember taking them off to lay them on the table when I was doing my lotion after my shower, and they're
Yeah.
gone. They walked right up, gone. Her glasses were up
You
on her
start
sewing
leaving
table
some-
in the workshop, and she laid them down, and they are now gone. Now I'm assuming if it's not, you know, whites, it could be cats, but
It very well could be your cat.
oh yeah, it could be the cats
And
for
that would
sure.
be John.
Yeah, that would be John. That'd be my cat's yeah. So I don't know where
Right.
they're at. There's some, but they're in this house. But yeah, so I do believe in the doors and the whites, land whites. I do put food out for them. I do make my offerings. Trust me, I do. So,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's four of them holding a skull up over my head.
I don't
Any
know.
last any last thoughts?
No. No, the only thing I would say is while we're going through all of this time, that it would be nice if everybody would treat each other with kindness.
Yeah,
And I don't think there's
Agreed.
any shame in reminding people to be kind.
that's right. We absolutely need that.
I think that's a good note to end on.
I think so too. So I'm gonna stop the recording. Thank you.